Hello, beautiful family in the light. Wishing you a blessed sun-filled day from Smithtown, Long Island. So much love to each of you. So we have a live stream here, and we also have our video recording. So we're going to attempt to do this because I wanted our video to also be captured besides the live stream. So welcome everyone, and thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being with us. And we're so grateful, first and most importantly, for the sun to be out. So we can be outside after 2 days of pouring rain. Very, very grateful. And I wanted to just take this opportunity to share a little bit about last night. What took place last night, and make sure the volume of this is on. What took place last night with the channeling, the masters. First and most importantly, once again, thank you so much, Conchetta, for hosting us. Thank you so much for Sam for opening your space where this vibration, this frequency could come through. And thank you to all the attendees that attended last night, that just showed up and allowed themselves to receive and be in that receptive mode. Very, very grateful. And thank you, Michael, for setting everything up and just taking part in that, and the introduction and just that space. And so I wanted to just open the space up to share about what was happening on my end when last night the council, the Sirian councils, the blue ray were coming in. And it was so interesting because it ties into also the dream, the dream state last night. So I want to just discuss that. Just a few things I really wanted to go through, and also the message that often, because when I'm in that space of the trance, I'm experiencing everything visually. And when we recorded, we did a full recording of the event. Unfortunately, the sound wasn't very clear.
We got an audio, which I'm going to transcribe,
which is very great.
And that will give us the clear level, as I know that when the audio comes through, it gives the specific channel that volume, that consciousness to the crowd as you're feeling it from within.
Right, so we're very grateful we get to have that, so we'll make this available. So those of you that are interested, you get to hear what this High Council, the Sirian High Council, shared. So what was happening to me once Michael started the blessing, and I was going into my space to start opening up the sort of like the corridor of the channel to take place, or the transmission take place. So as my consciousness left, I was just, it steps on the side temporary. So first there was these frequencies that started to open up, and that was the blue ray frequency that began opening up, sort of like a, how do I want to say, it's like an opening that takes place. And through that opening, then I start hearing auditory from here. But what's interesting, though there's a presence taking place in my body, my consciousness is on the side, so I'm multidimensionally hearing there and also hearing it in my physical vessel. So from there, as things started to expand and open up, there was a space where there were many beings, Sirian beings, but they were the dolphin beings. They were a little bit of a humanoid, but not quite. Those are the ones that were there. And so there were 3 of them that were communicating through my vessel, coming in and out. And what they were showing was, they were showing the universe. They were showing the spinning of the universe. They were showing the different frequencies of light that is within all intelligence. They were also showing on Earth, there are these pockets of constrained energies, and where the Sirians emit their light, what happens, they start helping it to spin, and then it expands out, and the above light becomes yellow, and things are spinning faster. When that's taking place, the radiance starts shifting, so there's a change of energy field, and from these 2 colors, then there's like the multiple colors, or 12 primary colors that primary and then secondary color began to spin out, and they're in movement. And so they were showing that within the humans, because the humans are not moving, this isn't able to vibrate properly through their vessels. So as a result, this spectrum of this 12 layers of light that is connected to the DNA is unable to fully be expressed through the human experience, because this part is denser, is not moving. So from there, what they were showing, when that happens, there's this sort of like a dance with the whole universal consciousness. And so I was experiencing everything on that level, and also the sound of the transmissions of the dolphins taking place, which was really, really beautiful. So they were sharing what the purpose of the dolphins of the planet is, and all of that, because it's part of that expression of that yellow ray of light, which is the expression of joy. And the other part of it, which was so amazing on my end, what I was experiencing also within my own vessel, how there are areas that are restricting this expression of joy. And I was aware while on the side, recognizing this transmission. My garment has a harder time in the fluidity of this dimensional frequency to come through, because there's a restriction within my own vessel of this contracted energy. So the more joy is expressed through me, then it becomes more fluid coming through. And finally, last night, I had the Sirians were with me. I had a little bit of a hard time for sleeping, but there was a lot of activity through the symbols and the language. And let me share this before that, because I'm going to make sure I catch everything. The other part was, I have been, many of you know, I've been working with the Sirian Lions Gate, Stargate, the 8-8, that particular gate, for several years now. And each year I'm in Mount Shasta working with this specific Lions Gate in that transmission coming through. That has to do with the Syrians, that had to do with Egypt, that has to do also with this, that central sun. So the Syrian cluster is behind our sun, and then that lines up behind the great central sun. So there's this streamline of this sun energy coming in, which again goes back to joy, which is no surprise that they talked about that last night. And it connects also to that alignment of the Orion's belt, which I understand was discussed last night. There's a lot more that was shared behind the words last night. Some individuals may just be perceiving the words, whereas if they just allow the transmissions behind it is by far beyond the words, behind what can be captured by the intellectual mind. And so last night in the dream, Michael and I were in Peru, and it was where we were seeing from further the NASCAR lines, and the Syrians were communicating how they were behind the creation of the NASCAR line. This was in my dream state, and also through these symbols and codes, and how the Mayans were Syrians that from Atlantis, part of them went there and part of them went to Egypt to carry the knowledge forth. And then there were multiple other things that took place in my dream last night. And what was so important in that recognition that us as souls incarnated in these physical forms, we are radiating and vibrating this specific frequency that's there and is through our DNA that has to spin around our field. And through that is our most important so-called service on the planet. And without the movement, we are unable to fulfill this. And those are the things that I wanted to share last night, and I was able to come back relatively easier. And I really enjoyed the presence being with these crystal dolphins last night and that Blu-ray, and I was also receiving where in me I was that was contracted was through that language of light was adjusting, and so I feel really joyful. Though I feel I didn't sleep so much, but I feel very grateful for what was brought forth, what took place in the frequency fields, and in full trust, individuals that attended last night, they were able to receive what they needed to receive. I'm very grateful for those who expressed afterwards that they were so grateful for the message, the general message that came forward, that they received. So that's what I really wanted to share, and just a reminder for all of you that attended last night to please take some time to integrate into this. It takes a while, and there's a daily practice from the message to incorporate, which we'll talk about it. I'm right away out. I had my own insight. Okay, I'm going to prioritize this. These are all part of that expression of joy that's so vital for the vitality and the life force energy. So yeah, Michael, so before you share, you have been in the presence of so many of the different beings that come through, whether it's a singular being or a collective being or council, and all the different messages. If you want to share what your direct experience was, and also because you got to hear different, you were able to observe more than the attendees because you're more accustomed to the frequencies. What you like to share?
First, I'm very grateful. I'm very honored for this experience. I feel blessed that I'm along by my beloved Honey to really feel the energy of what comes through, because it's really out of the deepest respect for the collective. It's when this frequency, these counsels, this wisdom that comes forward, they come with such grace. They come in a way where they not only welcome, but they introduce themselves in a way that they really want to be heard and connect and directly explain how those that are in the presence, not only have they been working with them, but they bring up times of either Egypt or times where in the star systems when we've been all connected. So immediately there becomes this way of where when they make their way presence, they're allowing this genuinity of saying, we're here, we welcome you. And what I giggle sometimes is a lot of times the crowd or the circles are very just like intimidated or just in an anxious mood of not knowing what to expect. So last night when the Council of Sirians came through, they were really, as I say, very, very gentle, very stern in their message. And for me, I feel honored because it's a series of messages that keep building. And me being primarily the one that's been by Honey and in all the events, you see how this message is building and building in really the remembrance of how multidimensionally, how we are a light body, and how we have so much more potential and power than our limited mental body sees. And last night was really a big, big reminder of how incredible and how blessed that vibration of joy is really a necessity to not only transform our DNA, but to be open to experience the ultimate creation, because they really said in a very artistic way how this dance with the universe also is this dance within our vibration in ourself. And that dance within ourself requires us to really prioritize this joy. And I was talking to Honey how joy was the big impact, because in that joy that comes forward, that opens up to our divine love within ourselves. And many times, the Syrians were very sarcastic because they were saying this work thing. I don't know what you humans do with this work, but there's this, work that humans do, and they're not receiving joy out of it. Almost to the point that they were kind of sarcastically seeing how many of us were so closed down that we don't have this joy available. So when we close that joy off, we're literally closing down a vital part of our existence within ourselves. And when that comes down to a point of low vibration, they really talk about how that opens up for our invitation of parasites of disease, dis-ease. They actually spoke about
because like when the joy reduces,
when
right?
the joy reduces, they were specifically saying how we're in a dis-ease, but when we're in joy, we're in this ease, we're in this relaxation, which really allows us to expand and really be in that ultimate creation, because they really spoke about our souls are that collective experience of the whole divine that's going through the whole universe. Yet we as humans are very attached to our personality, our vessel, and just what's normal, our day-in-day actions. Yet they kept saying, well, how many of you prioritize joy? And that's one thing that I like to write about, and just to go deeper. And I know Honey's asked about it. I know sometimes Honey wants to get on it right away. I'm just kind of staring at the trees, being like, okay, joy, what is it within joy? And before I go into action very quickly. I'm like, I go into more of a meditative state of just feeling like, okay, they said joy, but then I started going deeper and like, okay, well, if joy is what the vibration is, what are we doing to prevent joy? What things are we doing that, as we say...
That was a really good observation.
That many times, where is our attention going? Day in, day out, there is a lot of energy on this planet, within our family, within news, within... Somehow we get so attracted to energies that pull us. If it's negative, if it's harmful, if it's painful, which isn't good or bad, it pulls us away, and then somehow we get caught up in this drama where we start talking about it, where we start just going deep into it, kind of like, we can have 9 amazing things happen a day, but that one negative thing can pull our whole energy out. So last night, as they were talking, it was really bringing forth of how can we bring forth this joy and understand that this joy brings forth such a shift, such an expansion within our DNA, within our collective, and really within our forefront of being the expansive beings that we are. And when listening to them, it's very interesting because it's a very simple a simple concept. Yet in the complexity of it, we have to step back and really see within our own daily life of what are we doing, because many times, even as they ask the crowd, they're like, are you prioritizing joy? And everyone's like, yeah, we're prioritizing joy. And then they say, well, then how come you're so stuck on how people perceive you? Why is it that we're so focused on doing things what other people perceive as good, and we're trying to validate and accept ourselves outwardly, but we're not putting our own personal joy forward? So they get tricky, because they say, well, we see you not living to your fullest because we see you acting from a limited perspective. It's kind of like they call our BS out on it, because they acknowledge the fact that we're aware of what they're saying, but one thing is to know, the next step is to actually be of it and express it. So they were very, very cute, they're very graceful, but what I appreciate is they were very stern, because as this morning, being very inspired, woke up, wanted to dive deeper into the Sirians, learning how they're spiritual warriors, how they really have a very big impact on protecting this planet, on really having invested energy, how they were first brought into the Latin American communities in Egypt and behind the Mayans, and really even seeing the huge concepts which Honey pointed out in Asheville, North Carolina, where we just were, where there's a lot of sacred energies all aligned in that. So what I feel very blessed is these messages keep coming forward in a built-up. And this built-up, for me personally, is to bring forward really how multidimensional we are, how powerful we are, and how limited this mind views us. Once we step out of that mind and really start to look at the greater picture, and what they always say, which I feel is really beautiful, is we are bringing a remembrance. We're bringing this transmission. And as they are saying, like Honey spoke about, yes, the words have a very big impact, but behind the words is the energy that's being brought forward. And I always feel grateful and so blessed that Honey is just, she is so incredible to be in a position and allow this amazing transmission come forward, and not have a clue of who's coming through, but to have that trust, of like, if someone's coming through, and how to be in front of a group, not to know what facial expressions, not to know what type of sound, but just to be open and just to show what I feel is one of our biggest lessons in life is to let go and let God, allow ourselves to fully trust Honey sitting here and watching her these past times in front of a large group or just in front of me. It just shows amazing courage, strength, and just this willingness to allow. And to me, that is one of it's so noble. I feel like it's such an honor to watch someone bring forth something that they just literally allow. And of course, with the parameters, of course, with all of the beings that are helping within her and her vast experience, it's just inspiring to watch and see in that trust what comes forward, and then come out of it and be seeing it from a perspective of what the colors, the experiences are, and then speak to me in the group of like, okay, what happened in the word language, because there are two different perspectives still coming from the same experience. Like, it's just two different ways of looking at that. So I felt very honored to watch her and just be that protector, be that individual to help guide, to help transition. I feel honored to introduce Honey. I feel honored to start the blessing and just really help bring forward what we see each time, a message that's for each and every one of us in the circle, let alone a message that's here for the collective, that's a remembrance. It's already within us. And sometimes we laugh because we're like, wow,
it's so simple.
So simple.
And I feel what is really important beyond all of this is there is that the Sirians, Arcturian, Galactic councils, angels, archangels, masters, the nature beings, whatever. We're all part of the same. We're all in it together. And I feel that once we just allow that space by letting go of the control, and that seems to be what I'm able to do, I'm able to interact multidimensionally with an aspect of myself that is part of all. And I feel I actually the presence of me as a soul recognized singular entity really enjoys the vibration in that interaction. Though my physical garment has been adjusting to just interact with that frequency or the multidimensional aspect of that collective frequency, I really love it because it's filled with light, it's filled with love, it's filled with joy, it's so non-judgmental, it's so grand, it's so expanded, it's so creative, and I really love that. And I feel like when I drop back in my body, I'm very grateful for what I was able to experience, because I can tell in my own vessel updates. Yet at the same time, I recognize right away my human limitation, yet also the possibility of the human infinite potential simultaneously, because I'm able to experience that once I get in that space. It's like, wow, so this physical expression has infinite ways of experiencing itself if we just allow that window of openness so that it can experience its different realities while here. So that's the part, if there was a message to be shared, that would be the share that's available to all of us if we just, and it requires faith and trust. And the faith and trust is not on anybody else, anything else. The faith and trust is within you. When you fully have faith and trust in you as a being, and for me as a being of light, as a messenger of light, then I'm able to experience myself on a larger, expanded scale of a multiverse expression, and allowing very different parts of me be known to my soul's presence.
And I find what's so important what Honey said is exactly what they said last night. She couldn't have said it. You couldn't have said it any better.
I think they were talking through me right now. Because I don't know. That sounded very like elegant, didn't it?
Very. And like it was.
I don't know how. I don't think I said it.
But when you express it and you said that, you nailed exactly what they said last night.
They're still with me. That's why I don't feel I own those words.
Well, you do, because it came through you.
It came through.
And what's beautiful, because it really touched my heart by hearing it again, is it's allowing it. And we have that choice to either not allow it or to allow it. It's a choice. And Honey you cannot express it so much more graceful and clear in what we have that opportunity right in front of us. We have that ability. No one is telling you what you can, what you can't do.
You're the only one who's not allowing or allowing.
And you have that freedom. And what I feel is beautiful, and even last night when they were asking questions, there was a part of me when they were talking about joy and the frequency. And
well, can you tell them what are the questions the audience asked?
So there were questions about. One question was talking about, which was a very deep question. They were like, how many times do we have to experience this earth, and how often we have to go through this? And basically it was saying how each and every one of us, when we come here, we are volunteers. Not only are we volunteers, but we've served in this collective conscious expansion to come here to serve a role. And it went very deep. I would like to go deep.
We'll do it, translate. What were the other questions?
Another one was, will Trump be elected for the second term? And I thought that was hilarious because they went above that, and they again said that each person here is reflecting a quality that's allowing individuals to serve their purpose to help the conscious expansiousness. There was another one that spoke about the violence, and so they kind of got confused. They said, could you refocus the question about violence? And then they spoke about how, again, their language is very unique, because it's like you ask the question, but they go to it the next level deeper beyond the question to bring forth the wisdom that's coming forth.
Yeah, so that's what we call it, channeling the master, because there's a mastery in the craft, in the language that is used. It's a different language. Yeah,
because it was interesting how there were just a few questions, and an immediate question that came to my mind, which, of course, as they're talking, I was going to just, and there were no other questions, to express how joy can be created when there's so much pain and suffering, but they just went so deep in the expression of saying it's our priority throughout the day to create joy. We can do it from the simple of singing, dancing. We have that creative force, so no matter how many times that mind wants to create that limitation of, well, how can I move through this part? How can I move through that? It's beyond that limitation of the mind. If we have that ability in that vibrative sense that's already there, all we have to do is initiate it by taking action into it. So I felt like the questions, they were in such a deep state that you almost have to sit back, listen to the answer, and see how it ties back to the question, because they looked at the question as kind of like, well, the house is red. Well, let me talk about the interlinings of the paint that creates the house, because they never took the question at face surface. They saw that underneath there was a vibration that allowed. And again, they were very elegant, very graceful. And what I'm so inspired is to see that there is and there are quite a bit of beings, quite a bit of help. So many people have this like fear of like, oh my gosh, who's going to help us? Who's going to save the world? There is such a large interaction that's helping with this expansion and shift of consciousness to bring the faith, to bring the hope, and to know that it's within each and every one of us that we're part of this collective. We're part of this amazing shift, so that we are supported, we are connected, and by hearing this, it gives you that feeling of like,
I feel that's what it was afterwards. I really appreciated when people came afterwards, and the ones that spoke to me personally were they're just the gratitude that they received exactly the message that they needed to receive, and for that I'm very grateful. And I love they always put the responsibility back on your shoulder to empower you, and that's what I appreciate. So may this message also empower you, or write the transcript out, make it available. Hopefully we can even put it on, I don't know, SoundCloud, just so you can hear the way it comes in. So there's one of me like this, and then there's when it comes in, I'm transformed. So it's kind of interesting. But so much love to every single one of you. Thank you for those of you that attended last night. We're so looking forward to hear your testimonies, your little write-ups. Please share maybe a video, maybe in writing, post it behind our YouTube page, you know, and the one with the channeling the masters, and just share, because the more you share, you're doing your part, you're educating others, because when the minute people hear channeling or incorporated, the fear steps in, versus when you experience it, you can feel the love, so there's nothing to fear. So for that, I'm very grateful. And again, thank you, Conchetta. Special gratitude to my dear sacred brother, our brother, Stephen Morelli, for the Firmbud Oracle display once again. They were very present in the room.
Thank you, Era, for the beautiful crystals. They brought the transformation and just the ability to have amazing energy on the stage.
Yeah, those were the citrine geode crystals that our sacred sister Arya from Crystal Cognizant allowed us, has sponsored for us to borrow to be on the road to help support the transmissions coming in. So we couldn't be more grateful, and thank you, Conchetta, and thank you, Sam, again, and we look forward to
being of high healing service.
Exactly, and taking this to, we'll be in Idaho, and then we'll be in Toronto and Europe. So we're looking forward to others experiencing the frequency of channeling the masters. So with that, have a beautiful, blessed, sun-filled day. We're so grateful for Grandfather Sun. And Aho Namaste and Lakesh Banura Esh House to all of you.